Hello, everyone. Welcome to CRNA School Prep Academy podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Finnell, and CRNA. And I'm so excited to be launching this podcast today. And I'm excited to kind of get to know you and you get to know me a little bit more and kind of take you through why I'm doing this and why now is a good time to tune in and learn with me. Okay. So again, Jenny Finnell, I've been a CRNA for 6 years now, going on 7. And, about 2 years ago, I started being more active on social media and having students or aspiring CRNA students reach out to me after they saw that I posted I was a CRNA and asking me all types of questions. And so naturally, of course, I was going to help them, and I enjoyed doing so. Prior to that, my experience has been being a mentor to SRNAs during school. So during my time as a CRNA, I mentored dozens and dozens and probably even over hundreds of SRNAs throughout my career as a CRNA. And I've always really enjoyed doing that. But never really before had I actually been reached out to by aspiring students and kind of confronted with that dilemma just getting into school. I can share my own story, my own background, but what I have found through listening to my students, and other fellow aspiring CRNA students, is that there's a lot out there to know about getting acceptance into anesthesia school, and it's all very different. Essentially, it's kind of like cracking a code because all schools can be a little bit different. All schools can have slightly different expectations. Some really value leadership. Some really value community service. Others have a huge focus on GPA. They all look at the same data as far as what makes a successful candidate. There is some research out there on board passing rates and maybe some key characteristics of the people who do tend to pass boards the first time, such as, again, we'll go into things like GPA, science GPA, age, ICU background, and, there's just a bunch of different factors. And so they're kind of looking at the big picture of all these candidates. Emotional intelligence is another one that's a big hot topic right now. As well as being aware of being culturally diverse. Programs are really focusing on that right now as well because they do realize that, historically over time, if you look back in history, that most programs were not very culturally diverse at all. And so there's a lot of different factors playing into gaining acceptance in the school these days. It doesn't just come down to GPA. It doesn't just come down to ICU experience. No one factor can really give you the lead. It's more about how you combine all of these factors together, as well as kind of tailoring it to what your school's goals are and mission is, as far as what they're actually looking for in a candidate. However, based on my own research and just working with my students, there are definitely a lot of key characteristics and key things that students can do to better themselves, especially the students who maybe come from a background with less than ideal GPA, or maybe you're worried you don't have the best ICU experience, or maybe you're worried because you think you're too old to go back to school, or maybe you're worried because you have kids and you're worried about how are you going to juggle being a parent and being in CRNA school. So a lot of students face these fears, and sometimes it can actually cause hesitation and cause them to not even move forward. And that to me is very upsetting to see, and it happens time and time again. So when I kind of started getting involved, helping mentor aspiring students, I really took it to heart to really help those who especially feared some of these unknown factors that they didn't know going in were going to hinder them in their progress in becoming a CRNA. So with that, I took it upon myself to reach out to various programs and program directors, faculty members, CRNAs, SRNAs, and I just started diving in and learning with them. I started asking the same questions they're asking me to the program faculty, and asking the students who talk to program faculty what they were told. And again, just kind of collecting all this information. And it has been a very humbling experience because, like I said, from my background, I could have given you what I thought you should do based on my experience. But what I realized is that just because I did this one thing, my background, my unique situation was very different from other people's. So my advice based on one experience can't cover everyone. And so it's very key when you're seeking out advice for CRNA school admissions to really get a well-rounded answer that comes from multiple backgrounds, which is kind of my mission. My mission is to try to gather all the resources out there, compile them, and give you the best advice going forward. Now, that being said, I always tell my students, really the best person, best place to get advice is your school itself. Going to the open house is one of the key things you can do to get that information essentially from the horse's mouth, right? But not all programs are able to offer, if they get hit with 100 emails, intermittently, maybe they can't get back to every single one of them, or maybe they give you a really short response and can't tailor advice to you in the way that you really need. And so that's kind of where we step in a little bit and can kind of help you. So the big picture essentially is that there's a lot of aspiring CRNA students out there and not enough advice that can be tailored to every individual need. And so, and also there's a lot of misinformation out there as well, and a lot of critics. And so I think I hear a lot of my students say that they were told by someone along the way, whether that be a fellow nurse who maybe didn't gain acceptance into school, discouraged them from even trying because they had these limiting beliefs that they thought hindered them. And they put those limiting beliefs on someone in the future who mentioned CRNA school. Like, hey, if you're not a 4.0 student, you might as well not even bother trying. Or, you don't have you don't work in a level 1 trauma ICU, you really shouldn't bother applying, or whatever the limiting belief may be. Sometimes people don't do it to be hurtful, but, and essentially they, again, kind of put their own limiting beliefs on other people. And again, not maybe intentionally to hurt them or hinder them, but essentially it does. And so I encourage you to not listen to the naysayers, to take it upon yourself to really find out this advice for yourself, get it from your school, hear it from your program director, hear it from their faculty, talk to current SRNAs who go to your program, and start from there. Reach out to people who are supportive and who want to help you, and people who, and again, my background as kind of, I wouldn't say I guess I probably could say I'm an underdog, but I always root for the underdogs because I truly think there's something special in seeing a student, even as a current SRNA, who maybe has struggles, and then they blossom into this amazing, awesome SRNA, soon to be CRNA. It's really cool to watch that progress. And, everyone has potential. Everyone has the ability to do what you want to do. You just sometimes, some people need more mentoring than others. Some people need certain guidance. Some people, sometimes it comes down to mental health too. How much support do you have? And where are you mentally when you start your journey to CRNA? That can play into it too. Has nothing to do with how smart you are, how good of a test taker you are, but really how mentally strong are you? And is there things going on around you that can actually hinder that? There's just so many factors, as you can see. I could go on and on about this all day, which is why I started the podcast. So I can go on about this all day, every day with you guys, because I really want to help you. I'm here to help. I'm here to make this journey less scary, less intimidating, and hopefully more clear going forward. So why now? Well, why not? Why not? If especially there's so many of my students who have been putting this off, who have been afraid to take that next step, who have thought about it for even years and who haven't actually taken the plunge. You will never know unless you try. You have to give yourself a chance. And sometimes my students, they face rejection, they face failure, and they think, well, this is not for me. Maybe I'm not cut out for it. Or maybe they have a really rough time in the ICU and they think, well, if I can't be an ICU nurse, what makes me think I'm cut out for CRNA? I'm here to tell you, ICU world is way different than anesthesia. I did not like being an ICU nurse. I hated it, but I love CRNA. It's different. It's not the same. So just because you're burnt out as an ICU nurse does not mean you're going to be burnt out as a CRNA. I can guarantee you that. And all my coworkers, I've never met a CRNA ever that I've ever worked with who has dissatisfied with their job essentially, or who has regretted their decision. The only hesitation I get sometimes from CRNAs is probably the financial burden you take on to become a CRNA. But as far as work satisfaction and job satisfaction, it's there. This is the career for job satisfaction. So are all places rainbows and sunshine? No, there's no such thing as a unicorn job. So, and if you find it, please let me know. So yes, nothing's perfect, but this is, if you like critical care, pharmacology, pathophysiology, if you like being in charge and kind of the head of the bed and being more and hands-on, I should say, you will love being a CRNA. And so now is a good time. Now is a good time to give yourself that chance you need to further your career out of the ICU and into the world of anesthesia. Okay. And schools are not getting less competitive. I hate to break it to you guys. You know, if you look back, talk to a CRNA who graduated 20 years ago versus a CRNA who graduated today. Not only are boards more challenging to pass because they keep raising their standards, but just the applicant pool, you guys, is getting more and more intense and more fierce. Okay, people are learning about CRNA. A lot of people are interested in it, and so there are some schools, you guys, who get 600 or 700 applicants in one application session. But there are also schools who get 75 applicants. And, you know, when people are looking for schools to apply to, know that some schools are more competitive than others, naturally, because maybe they only have 10 seats and they get 500 applicants, or maybe they have 40 seats, but they get 200 applicants. You know, so knowing these things ahead of time will really help you gauge how competitive these programs are. You know, anywhere from a 10% or even 8% acceptance rate all the way up to a 30% acceptance rate. So all programs are a little different. And so if you get rejected from a school who has a 10% acceptance rate, I mean, why would you take that as a bad sign that you're not cut out for school? That's a 10% acceptance rate. That's not very high, meaning they had to turn down a ton of qualified candidates, okay? So, and know that if you get waitlisted, that's not a rejection. That's an acceptance. That means they want you. They just don't have room for you right now because they have limited seats. So, it breaks my heart when students give up when they get that wait list. Oh my gosh, that means keep going, keep chasing. You're almost there. The door is open. You just have to get your foot through that door. So I love to encourage students like that too, because it breaks my heart when I see students who get waitlisted, even if it's several times, and then just give up. That is just the wrong thing to do. A little bit of tweaks here and there, and you will gain acceptance. And I'll tell you another thing too, just a spoiler alert. Most of the time, maybe not 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10 at least, it usually comes down to the interview, guys. It's not usually having tons of extra, I mean, everything will play because some schools will use a grading system on application stats, okay? So sometimes it is playing to a grading system, but your interview can really make or break you, okay? So interviewing skills are something I think people work really hard on getting their application ready to go, teed up. They get extra certifications, they do extra courses, they do shadowing, they get involved, whatever it may be, but they forget to prepare for their interview. And sometimes these interviews can be extremely intense, probably the most intense interview you will ever sit through. Some schools are a little more laid back. And again, not knowing this, what you're walking into can set you up for success or failure. If you don't know what you're walking into and you walk into it cold, you know, you might get lucky and do really well based on the preparation you've already anticipated needing, but a lot of people are kind of blindsided that way and get kind of wrecked in the interview, and then they feel discouraged and they do want to give up because it's embarrassing, and then maybe they question themselves whether they can actually do this. I'm telling you, preparation. If you know ahead of time, you can prepare, you'll be okay. All schools, their interviews can be different. Some do emotional intelligence testing, some do on-the-spot essays, some do heavy pathophys pharm, some do clinical scenarios, some run through mock codes. Oh my gosh, some ask personal questions such as, if you could be any kind of animal, tell me what kind of animal you would want to be and why. It's just random questions. So again, kind of knowing the school's personality and kind of what to expect will really help you when that day comes and you actually get that interview. All right, and lastly, you guys, I know I just told you a lot, kind of spilled the beans on a lot of different things, and again, that's why this podcast is going to cover so many various topics, because getting accepted in school is so vast and the knowledge you need to have is vast. It's just, you need to know a lot. And not just getting acceptance, but my key focus now wants to be on also supporting SRNAs, because I get reached out to a lot by SRNAs who either are on academic probation, maybe they're facing rejection or dismissal, I should say, not rejection, or they're just struggling and they need some help, they need guidance, they need support. And so I really think that should start prior to starting school. That support system, that foundation needs to start before school. So I'm also on a mission to help you, the SRNA, learn different topics. I can use my 6 years of experience to share with you what it is I've learned. So hopefully you don't have to learn the hard way the way that I have. So I'm excited to be able to share all these various anesthesia topics with you. I'm going to bring financial planners on here, help you, stress management experts in the field, all kinds of experts that are going to help contribute to this podcast. But a little bit about me, kind of a little bit less about the podcast. Again, you know, my mission has been to support students who are out there looking for support, and even the ones who are not. I actually think some students don't even know they need help, unfortunately, until it's too late. And so I hope by starting this podcast, I can reach more people at a better time to essentially prevent any kind of unfortunate events from happening. So they realize maybe early on, okay, I do need support. I do need to learn these things now to help me down the road. But I'm here from you. Like I said, my journey into CRNA school may look like a walk in the park compared to some of these students I work with, and it really truly does. And that's what's so also impressive to me, is the fact that I hear students who have dealt with 13 plus rejections and they still get accepted and go back to school. And that's just so inspiring to me, and I really would love to share those stories with you. My journey, as a young student was not ideal. I dealt with speech impediment from a young age. I actually failed the first grade and begged my parents to not hold me back so I wouldn't be not with my friends. I went through tutoring in almost every subject and under like my grade school years: English, reading, math, I even failed handwriting. Who fails handwriting? I did. So from a young age, I struggled in school, and I truly had this belief that I wasn't smart. I wasn't cut out to be smart. I just would never be that straight A student. And meantime, I had a sister who was a straight A student. And so I just thought there was a big difference in our brain. I thought, okay, my brain's not made that way, and I will never be able to be that way. And you guys, I believe that, and I let that be my future. And not that my parents were always so supportive. My dad always just saying, Jenny, you can do better. You can do better. Even when I'd bring home those C's, he'd be like, you can do better. And I'd be so mad. Like, no, I can't, Dad. I can't do better. I tried. And, so it was not lack of support at home. I had tons of support. It was my own limiting beliefs, like I said, that were hindering my ability to actually perform. And, for whatever reason, I just kind of accepted that. And it wasn't until, and there was also things too that maybe could have been pointed out to me sooner. Like I did find out actually not until high school that I had a mild form of dyslexia, and not that it hinders me on a daily basis, but I do have to be aware of it because I'll flip words around. I will omit words. I will insert words. I will flip my numbers backwards. So it makes me a slow reader. So because of that, I struggled to read. I struggled to gain concepts from reading. And from a very early age, I thought that was the only way to study. You read your notes, you read your text, and you take tests. Like that's what I thought studying was. I had no idea until I kind of investigated study techniques in college after facing a rejection from the College of Nursing that there's so much more to studying than that. And I'm going to share that with you in an upcoming episode, what I've learned over my years of studying. Starting my sophomore year in college, I became a straight A student for the first time in my entire life, you guys. I went from barely a 3.0 student struggling to get C's and B's to a straight A student all the way through grad school. And it was once it finally clicked for me, I never looked back. I just said, boom, I'm gone. I'm done having these limited beliefs. I'm done thinking I can't do it. I can do it. I know I can do it. And I'll just keep working until I can figure out how. It's really about being persistent and not giving up. And the same thing goes for becoming an SRNA. If you're resilient, if you're determined, if you're disciplined, if you have grit, if you have passion for wanting to do this, you will not take no for an answer. You will keep going. And don't see your failures or rejections as failures. They're a learning experience. They're room for you to grow. Because I can tell you, every person, even if they are good at what they do, still make mistakes and they still have room to grow. And so even once you become a CRNA, you're not going to know everything and you're still going to be learning. And that's kind of the beauty of our careers. You're always going to be learning. And so I'm here to tell you that I can help you make this dream a reality. I'm excited you're here, and I'm excited to dive into all the knowledge I can share with you guys and also learn from you. So be sure to reach out to me if you can. Leave me a review in the comments section. I'd love to hear where you are in your journey, and I'm excited to take this journey with you. All right, you guys take care. Bye-bye.